Queen Elizabeth II, an enduring symbol of strength and grace, lived a life that unfolded in the full glare of the public eye. Yet, the allure of fame and admiration came at a harrowing price, as she found herself the target of not one, but three chilling assassination attempts. From bullets fired by a deranged high school student to a sinister plot to derail her train, Queen Elizabeth's resilience and unwavering spirit were nothing short of extraordinary. So, how did Queen Elizabeth escape 3 assassination attempts before her death? Australia, 1970. In the year 1970, Queen Elizabeth II embarked on a grand royal tour of Australia, a journey that would prove to be both eventful and perilous. On the 29th of April, the Queen, accompanied by her husband, Prince Philip, boarded a train in Sydney with the destination set for the city of Orange, a distance spanning approximately 161 miles. Little did they know that this seemingly routine journey would soon take a treacherous turn. The incident transpired near the small town of Lithgow, a settlement with a population of around 13,000 souls. Unbeknownst to Queen Elizabeth and the other passengers, a malevolent plot had been set in motion before their train's departure. A large log, measuring approximately 7 feet in length and 8 inches in diameter, had been strategically placed on the tracks. This log was of sufficient size and weight to potentially derail the train, causing unimaginable harm to those on board. The individual responsible for this nefarious act had carefully concealed the log in the darkness, wedging it onto the tracks in a manner designed to inflict maximum damage. Fate, however, intervened in a most fortuitous manner. At the moment of impact, the train was traveling at a significantly reduced speed, a deviation from its usual pace. This unexpected deceleration proved to be a stroke of luck, as it meant that the train merely collided with the log, causing a momentary disruption but preventing a potentially catastrophic derailment. The train continued for approximately 200 meters, with the log still lodged beneath its front wheels, before finally coming to a halt at the level crossing near Bowenfels Station. Remarkably, Queen Elizabeth II remained unaware of the perilous encounter that had just unfolded mere meters away from her. Astonishingly, the Australian authorities chose not to report the matter, and even the local newspaper, the Lithgow Mercury, agreed to withhold the story from the public for nearly 4 decades. It was only in 2009 that the details of this covert incident were finally revealed to the world. Despite numerous investigations by Australian authorities over the years, the truth remained elusive. The secretive nature of the matter made it challenging to obtain concrete leads or identify suspects. IRA sympathizers were considered prime suspects, but the truth behind the plot continued to elude investigators. Throughout these years of secrecy, it appears that Buckingham Palace remained unaware of the perilous incident. The British authorities, too, may have played a role in keeping the story hidden. In 2009, Buckingham Palace issued a statement declining to comment on the matter, yet the royal diary contained no record of any unusual events transpiring on the ill-fated train journey that day. The mystery surrounding this assassination attempt on Queen Elizabeth II's life remains unsolved, shrouded in the annals of history as an enigma that continues to captivate and confound. Trooping the Color, 1981. Moving forward in time to June 13, 1981, Queen Elizabeth II faced yet another perilous encounter, this time on her home turf. Her would-be assassin, a mere 17-year-old named Marcus Sargent, unleashed a harrowing attack. The backdrop was the heart of London, as the Queen participated in the Trooping the Colour ceremony, an event marked by grandeur and tradition. On that fateful day, the streets teemed with crowds who had gathered to witness the spectacle. Riding in a carriage were Diana Spencer, soon to be married to Prince Charles and Prince Andrew, who joined the Queen on horseback. Unlike the previous assailant, Sargent didn't exhibit any glaring psychological issues. In his youth, he excelled academically and even garnered awards for marksmanship during his time at the Air Training Corps, a youth organization. However, at the age of 16, his life took a dark turn. He briefly joined the British Royal Marines, but left due to alleged bullying. His stint in the Army lasted only 2 days before he was deemed unfit. Rejections from the police and fire brigade followed, leaving him disheartened. Sargent eventually found employment at a zoo, but at 17, he was once again jobless and had become a member of an anti-royalist group. The Queen's fate hung in the balance, relying on the fact that this young man had failed to procure ammunition for his father's .455 Webley revolver. His attempts to acquire another firearm proved fruitless, thanks to the stringent gun control measures in England. Despite joining a gun club to obtain a license, he resorted to purchasing 2 blank-firing replica Colt Python revolvers for approximately $80, which were delivered to him via mail. If he couldn't assassinate the Queen, he was determined to instill fear. Shortly before the assassination attempt, Sargent sent a letter to Buckingham Palace, warning of an imminent attack during the Trooping the Colour ceremony. Tragically, the letter arrived 3 days after the event. As Queen Elizabeth rode her horse, Sargent appeared seemingly out of thin air and discharged 6 rounds from his weapon. The noise rattled onlookers, but the revolvers fired blanks, causing no harm. However, the commotion frightened the Queen's horse, Burmese, which momentarily reared up. With swift precision, the beast guardsmen and police officers apprehended Sargent. Remarkably, Queen Elizabeth, according to one of her bodyguards, remained remarkably composed and continued her ride. Though shaken by the episode, she quickly regained her poise. Sargent faced charges under the 1848 Treason Act and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Astonishingly, he had harbored aspirations of infamy and had previously idolized the assassinations of John Lennon and John F. Kennedy. His diary, discovered by investigators, contained entries reflecting his desire for notoriety. He openly admitted to the police that he wanted to be famous, to be someone. Psychiatrists who evaluated Sargent did not diagnose him with severe mental health issues. Instead, they characterized him as a troubled and insecure young man who had closely studied the Lennon assassination and believed that targeting the Queen would make him famous. He saw it as an opportunity he couldn't resist. Upon his release from prison at the age of 20, Sargent was intensely disliked by many royal enthusiasts, prompting him to adopt a new identity. During his incarceration, he reportedly sent letters to the Queen, expressing remorse for his actions. Regrettably, none of his missives received a reply. The ultimate fate of this young man, labeled a traitor and a fantasy assassin by the media, remains unknown. It is conceivable that he would have attracted considerable attention had the truth about the Queen's later visit to New Zealand been disclosed. This incident, along with the New Zealand assassination attempt, forms a bizarre and little-known chapter in the history of Queen Elizabeth II's life, hidden from public view for many years. New Zealand, 1981. The most recent assassination attempt on Queen Elizabeth occurred in 1981, while she was fulfilling her royal duties in New Zealand. The perpetrator of this heinous act was a 17-year-old by the name of Christopher John Lewis. One might question why a teenager would harbor such sinister intentions towards the Queen, but delving into his troubled background offers some insight into his twisted motivations. Christopher's upbringing was marred by a tyrannical father and a life marked by chaos. He faced significant challenges in his early years, struggling with basic reading and writing skills until the age of 8. His expulsion from school followed an assault on another student, and his penchant for cruelty was evidenced by his disturbing habit of decapitating birds. Astonishingly, his idol was none other than the infamous Charles Manson. As he grew older, Lewis veered into a life of petty crime, culminating in a brazen armed robbery of a post office, during which he and his gang made off with over $5,000, a substantial sum, especially for a teenager in the 1970s. For Lewis, the allure of violence far outweighed the lure of money. His criminal endeavors expanded, leading him to form what he called the National Imperial Guerrilla Army. Those who knew Christopher Lewis intimately did not hesitate to label him as a bona fide psychopath. He would later confirm this characterization through his memoirs, aptly titled Last Words. It was during this tumultuous period of his life that he hatched a sinister plan to etch his name into history by targeting the British monarch. Lewis claimed that living with his tyrannical father was akin to enduring a living hell, which left him in a perpetual state of fear. The reasons behind his desire to harm Queen Elizabeth remain elusive, but he attributed it to the perceived wreckage of his life and an intense desire to become an outlaw, a status he was already close to attaining, having struck fear into the hearts of many in his hometown. On October 14, 1981, this deeply troubled young man decided to channel his rage and despair towards the British monarch. At the time, Queen Elizabeth was visiting a museum in Dundon, the very town where Lewis resided. Concealing his stolen .22 caliber rifle within a pair of old jeans, he entered a 7-story building from which he intended to take his shot. His escape plan was a humble 10-speed bicycle left parked outside the building. Inside the building, Lewis clandestinely made his way into a restroom stall, carefully unwrapping his firearm. Fueled by anger, he donned gloves and readied the rifle. He knew that the Queen would soon pass by in her Rolls-Royce as part of the motorcade. As the royal procession drew nearer, Lewis could hear the cheers of the crowd outside. His hands trembled with anticipation as he aimed his weapon toward the road. Suddenly, a loud crack reverberated through the street, startling the crowd. The Queen had just disembarked from her vehicle, fortunately unharmed. The gunshot, while close, did not reach its intended target. Lewis later claimed that he did not actually want to kill the Queen. Instead, he sought to frighten her in the hope of drawing attention to the issues and problems plaguing New Zealand. He believed that if the Queen addressed these issues, it might lead to positive change. However, the New Zealand Security Intelligence Service held a different view. After apprehending Lewis 8 days later, they believed he had indeed attempted to assassinate the Queen. This incident was shrouded in secrecy and covered up to avoid tarnishing New Zealand's image. When Lewis was charged, the public was only informed of his illicit possession of a firearm and the discharge of a firearm, with no mention of his attempt on the Queen's life. Despite witnesses in the crowd having heard gunshots, authorities assured them and inquisitive journalists that the noise was unrelated to the Queen's visit. Upon hearing the charges against him in court, Lewis responded with a terse inquiry, questioning whether the bullet had actually struck the Queen and pondering if such an act would amount to treason. Nevertheless, the entire story remained shrouded in secrecy until February 2018, when a media company unearthed the truth. By this time, Lewis had long passed away, leaving behind a somber tale of his demise. Following the assassination attempt, Lewis was committed to a psychiatric hospital where he exhibited violent tendencies. even threatening a guard with a knife. In his idle moments, he formulated yet another plot, this time targeting Prince Charles. Upon his eventual release, Lewis authored his memoirs, attempting to distance himself from criminal activities. However, intelligence agencies remained vigilant, deeming him a potential threat. They were well aware that if he had possessed a more formidable weapon on that fateful day, Queen Elizabeth might not have escaped unscathed. In 1995, when Queen Elizabeth revisited New Zealand, authorities opted to send Lewis into exile on Great Barrier Island, providing him with a 14-day, all-expenses-paid vacation. A friend once remarked that Lewis had always harbored a morbid curiosity about taking someone's life, a notion that would soon take a dark turn. The following year, Lewis found himself accused of a heinous crime, the murder of a mother of 3 named Tanya Perlin, whose life had been brutally ended with a hammer. The accusation extended to kidnapping her child in a bid to secure a ransom. However, the evidence against him was notably weak. Law enforcement had relied on an informant, a friend of Lewis's, who claimed that Lewis had confessed to the crime from his jail cell. Lewis vehemently maintained his innocence, writing, "I stand firm in my convictions that the present nightmare will soon be over. I know in my heart that I didn't commit these crimes." It's highly plausible that he was not guilty, and suspicions later fell on the informant, a man who subsequently committed a similar murder. Regrettably, Lewis never had the opportunity to clear his name, as he was electrocuted in his prison cell before his case could go to trial. What is truly astonishing about this tale is the fact that Christopher Lewis had the potential to assassinate Queen Elizabeth II. There is no doubt that he posed a genuine threat. Equally intriguing is the revelation that only the royals and select authorities were privy to this chapter of his life, and his assassination attempt, while ultimately unsuccessful, left an indelible mark on history. Join us to learn about many things we never knew about Queen Elizabeth or people in the royal family. Like, share and subscribe to update more interesting news. Thank you, and see you again in upcoming videos.